Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone to the regular Lower Gwinnett Board of Supervisor meeting, Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. The Board of Supervisors did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss matters of personnel and litigation. First up, public comment. Citizens are welcome to make comment on agenda items, on items that are not on the agenda. Anyone have public comment? Can you just, Deanne, can you just state your name and your address?
Hi, my name is Deanne Morris. I actually live on Belmont Avenue in Ambler, but I feel this is relevant because I'm also on the Wissahickon School Board, as well as my children walk to school every day through the roads in Lower Gwinnett Township. I just wanted to make the supervisors aware, if they weren't already, of an incident that occurred this past week where unfortunately a student was hit by a car on Knight Road, and luckily the student is fine. But what I'm trying to ask and just make you aware of and hope for your cooperation on is trying to come up with some solutions of how we can make the roadways around campus a little bit safer for pedestrians, for all the students that walk to school through especially Knight and Houston Road. Some ideas that I had was, a crosswalk at Knight and Brookside so that children could cross out of the woods safely, perhaps some speed bumps to ensure motorists do not speed along that way. The school district has approved $250,000 for improvements to the area, and hoping for your and the Lower Gwinnett police cooperation in making some of those changes. So someone from the district will probably be in touch with you all, but I just wanted to bring that to your awareness. And I would really appreciate any help and support we could have from the Lower Gwinnett supervisors. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Deanne. Before you go,
Yeah.
So being a resident of Brookside, I was aware of it, and we did have our police chief prepared to talk about that incident, just because there was a lot of concern amongst the neighbors in the immediate and surrounding area. Before he talks, though, I'm glad that I was not aware that there was a $250,000. Is this a grant, or is this budgeted money through the school district that's been allocated for public safety?
Yeah, not a grant. It's money that we voted to take out of our capital fund to help Lower Gwinnett and probably Ambler Borough as well, with a crossing at Knight and Mount Pleasant, to make sure that we have things in place to keep students safe. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to our police chief, Paul Kenny.
So obviously we're all for improvements, whatever can be made. This particular incident was investigated as a traffic accident. Fortunately, we had, unfortunately, it was another local resident was driving the vehicle, and we estimate her speed at under 15 miles per hour, that she saw two boys running, and experience told her to just slow down a little bit. And I think she was just going slow to start with. So she was able to react when this young man in the middle of the block ran out in front of her car. That's not taking away from, we can always improve things. I'm not trying to say this couldn't have been prevented, but some things are not preventable. And this particular accident was just a bad choice by a young person who was playing with a friend running and chose to run right in front of a car. In the meantime, we have reached out to AAA, our community policing unit, and we've ordered safety packets, and we've met with the principal at the elementary school, and we're going to either in person or through other instruction, make a visit to all the young students and talk about safety, not just vehicle safety, but all safety when you're leaving campus, when you're going home, different things that can keep them safe while they're walking. We do have a crossing guard at night in Houston. Our crossing guard moves from the upper location down lower. We all know we have a school resource officer there, and the actual officers themselves try to be there when schools are opening and when schools are closing. And I think everybody would agree, we do have a heavy presence there all the time. And we're fortunate. We had a vehicle traveling very slowly. There was no damage to the car. And fortunately, the boy complained of a knee injury. Probably had bumps and bruises from playing with friends, very similar to what he had. So we're fortunate, but we are reacting to it. We'll be glad to listen to any type of improvements that we can make. It's a tough, we've talked about this before. We have 3 schools in a residential neighborhood. We have 4,000 people coming to the middle of a neighborhood every single day. So it's a priority to us, and we'll continue to make it that.
Thank you. Dan, did you have any additional questions or anything that you wanted to ask since you are here and the police chief is here?
Well, yeah, thank you so much. You're right. The driver was going very slowly, and we're so fortunate that was the case because not everyone goes that slowly there. They make that turn off of night and sometimes are frustrated at waiting at that intersection for so long and then start cruising down. I'm sorry, turn off Houston and start cruising down night. So we were really fortunate. So I guess part of my hope is that this is sort of a wake-up call to say maybe next time we might not be that fortunate, and speed bumps would be part of it. I do want to thank you so much for the information, and also I want to thank the Lower Gwinnett Police Department, because a lot of times they do have an officer stationed in the morning right there at the well house at Brookside at night, and that makes that part so much safer for those kids, and I do really appreciate that. The one thing is, though, I never see the safety resource officer out on the street helping with kids. I just see Mr. Jim, who's wonderful. We so appreciate Mr. Jim. So, but thanks for all you do. And I hope we can come up with some ideas together to ensure safety of our students for the future. Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comments?
So good evening. I am coming, my name is Carmina Taylor. I'm a former resident of Lower Gwinnett. I'm coming with my individual comments and observations almost a year later from when I was here, I guess, before. I was taking the train into Lower Gwinnett tonight, and I thought to myself, I want to, first of all, I wanted to ask a question. What do you think, or what community in Lower Gwinnett is the most gentrified at this point? What would you, could anyone answer that?
You're asking as the township as a whole?
Yeah, like what neighborhood in Lower Gwinnett is potentially currently the most gentrified in the last 5 or 10 years? I think it's Penland. So because I think it's Penland, I wanted to share something. And I wrote you guys an email, and I just think it's very interesting in people in the room. So just wonder how that happened. But nonetheless, what I wanted to say is that I am the direct lineage of the pastor that baptized the most amount of people in that community. My grandfather was the second serving pastor of Bethlehem Baptist Church in Penland. I was groomed to follow his legacy and follow my mom's legacy. And I raised my children in Penland. So regardless of whether I've been born there or whether I live there now, I have invested in that community. I have lived in that community. I've served that community. And when I think about the Historical Commission and the things that are online now for projects. I just think about the conversation and the steps that I made presenting all of you, I guess over a year and a half ago, to talk about signage in Penland. I just find it really interesting that I'm now being asked if I want to ask the same things that I did 2 years ago to file another application and wait through the process of the Historical Commission. And I just want to remind everyone that I complied with everything that you asked for a year and a half ago, and I was treated differently in the process of being interviewed for the Historical Commission. And I just want everyone to be reminded that at the end of the day, Penland is a historical community in this township, and it does have a lot of roots. And what I am fearful of is that the history and all of the labor, all of the things that the people that have lived in that community poured into that community are becoming, may not be remembered, or the significance of that community may not be remembered because it is being gentrified. So I want to just clearly say that my reasons from coming to here is an altruistic reason. It's always been about what's best for that community, what's best for Laura Gwinnett. And I feel like I keep getting hits from various situations and hearing things. And I wanted to make sure that it should go noted that Penland should be acknowledged and that process should not be re-examined. I am going to go to the Historical Commission meeting this month as well, but I feel like there's something going on between the Board of Supervisors, that Historical Commission, and what's going on in the community. And I just think we need to be remembered that that was a African-American community primarily, and decades and decades of families have significance in there. So I don't want to belabor that point, but I just want to acknowledge that it's over a year, and the purposes of some of the things that were addressed in the Historical Commission in the beginning are still in limbo, and Penland is still in limbo. But now we're being asked if there's something that wants to be done to Penland, then we have to go through the whole same process again. Now, mind you, I haven't been to any Historical Commission meetings since they started meeting regularly, but I have made calls. So I just wanted to share that, because this whole thing about whether I'm a resident or not, to me, is so insignificant. Because I raised my children here. I pay taxes here at some point. I lived here most of my life. And my grandfather invested a great deal in this community. So that makes me a stakeholder no matter what. A lot of people become empty nesters. That's what happened to me. I'm entitled to move on because I invested in my son, and I made sure that he was able to go on and I was able to go on. So I just want to say that, because when I come here and I ask for things, or I try to work with the system and I comply with all of your processes and procedures, and I'm treated differently, it's not a Black or white thing. It's a human thing, or it's a Carmina thing. Because what people tell me is that if I do something, it's going to be treated differently for someone else. And there's been evidence of that in the past. And it's been somebody else that's been Black. So I don't think it's a race thing. Thank you.
Carmine, I didn't want to interrupt, but Janine Martin, we spoke probably a year ago when we were talking about impaneling the historic committee. And I wish that, I know you said you made some calls. I wish you called me, because I'm one of the supervisors on the.
But I
historic.
emailed you so you could have responded and told me to call you.
I didn't get an email, but that might be like a technology thing. I don't directly get the emails that go.
So let's
to
put
the
a pin on that.
township.
Let's put a pin on that. So when the public is given your email address to email all the board of directors or board of supervisors, we assume that everybody got our email. That doesn't happen, Danielle?
No,
It goes to the.
well, first goes to staff, and then they forward it to the supervisors. I meant directly to me. You have my personal cell phone and my email, because we spoke a while back. But I only say that to say, I wish you called me, because I did the last time we spoke when you came before the board about the markers. I shared with you that the committee was being impaneled, and that one of their main priorities was going to be coming up with policies and procedures, application process for historical markers. I think the whole committee agrees completely. And if you look at the minutes, it's very clear that they agree that Penland and markers in Penland are a priority. And I encourage you to come to the historic committee meeting, because they're They have not yet established the procedures, but they're working on it. And I think that's going to be on their agenda for this coming meeting, kind of establishing what the application process is going to look like. I think it's going to look very similar to what the state does. But they want to get, policies and procedures in place so that applicants can say, hey, this is historic. We would like this kind of marker, and the committee can evaluate it. But I know it's taking a long time. I think Kathleen calls it township time, and it's very accurate. Things move, slowly. We had to impanel the committee. They only meet once a month. Then the board has to approve the ordinance. Everything kind of moves at a snail's pace sometimes, but markers are a priority, and you're not being treated differently when you're being told to go to the historic committee instead of the board of supervisors. That the only reason I think that was suggested to you is because they're now in the process of working on that. And so your input as somebody who's from Penland, whose family is from Penland, who has a lot of information about the knowledge and the history of Penland, I think the committee would welcome that and wants to know, what type of markers you think belong in the community. And there'll be actually applications for how these markers can come about. I mean, that's something that the committee has prioritized to get done this year. It just, it's not happening overnight. Like, I think we would all hope these things could happen overnight.
No, I just to clarify, I forgot, Janine, your name, your information.
Yeah,
everything.
it was a long
I
time.
definitely forgot. Secondly, I was treated differently in terms of the process of the end goal decision-making. And third, I did call out, and I do have an idea of what their priorities are. And one of the priorities is the Ingersoll thing, right? So that's like what, over $1 million or something. And I felt that the process that I went before the Historical Commission was established would have at least had some inroads. It does make it very discouraging. I'll just say this from an outside perspective, to see my community gentrify as it is, and then not see it being on a greater priority, even financially. To me, it's a no-brainer because it's nowhere near going to be the project cost to renovate the Ingersoll. And so, again, I will tell you that I haven't been to a meeting since the last few. I'm swamped, but I felt coming in at this juncture because I know there's things in the peripheral related to the church, related to the community. And I just wanted to be on record sharing my thoughts. I do have some skepticism about some things, but that's me, right? And I can live with that, but I still wanted my voice to be heard. I still wanted it to be recorded. But I think, the assumption that when we email, the only email address that we were given, that everybody got it. I just thought everyone got it. So I think that's definitely an assumption.
We do
Because I
get
think
it.
I
We
addressed
do get it.
everybody.
No, of course, we get it. What I was saying was you didn't email me directly. That's what I was trying
I
to
definitely
say.
don't remember.
Yeah, no, that's okay. As the supervisors serve, we're sort of split up on these committees, and Danielle and I are on the historic. So we're sort of more, we deal with the historic committee day to day. And so I could have shared with you that it is a priority. They unfortunately have been tasked with a lot of priorities. Ingersoll House is of course one, but historical markers is as well. I think they identified 3 priorities at their last meeting. So, of things to accomplish for the year. And the historical markers, I believe, is on the agenda for the next meeting. Matt, the chair, I just met with him.
It was fun.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Someone, I don't even know how he even got to, someone forwarded my email, I guess, to Matt. Matt reached out and invited me, and I agreed, but I still felt it was necessary for me to come back to all of you, and especially to Danielle, you know what I mean? Because I feel a certain kind of way. And so I just wanted to be definitely clear on how I feel about it at this body level. And now that I see other things moving in places, I still think there's a root to it. So it's fine. I will remember. Now I looked up the emails, and I'll be here on the 16th and get to learn more and meet Matt and meet everyone else. I just think, what concerns me the most is that it's definitely one of the most gentrified communities in your township. And I just don't want the history of that significance of that neighborhood to be lost. There's very few residents that have been there for a long time. So.
I mean, I just wanted to follow up So when you send the email to supervisors, or even think when you send it to info, it goes to staff. And then staff disseminate it to, if it's a committee, it depends upon what you're asking, but generally at the end of the week in our managers' reports, that's when we get all of the information of like, these emails came through and communications came to us, but they'll still deal with it in the interim, if that makes sense. So that's probably, I'm not sure if you send it to supervisors or info.
Whatever's on the website.
Yeah. One of,
I mean,
one
at
of
some
those.
point, I think I do have your individual stuff. I was busy, I was in the moment, I just went on the website, I clicked the link, sent the message.
No, and that's a totally fine way to reach out to us, or you can reach out to us directly. As far as Penland goes, I think the historical markers is one important aspect, but I am well aware of what you're talking about as far as the gentrification. But you have to understand the idea that there is no other community that could be gentrified,
Correct.
because there's only one community
Correct.
where individuals of
That's
color
what
were
I'm
segregated. I'm very well aware of it, and it is something that, I mean, I think I've said this to staff. My grandmother specifically told me she would haunt me if I allowed that to continue. And she told me this as a child. So, and you know where you probably know where I know where your family lived. You probably have an idea of where my family lived, right next to the church. So, and they tore down her home and they tore down the other home, and, you know, so it is something that we're tasked with addressing, but there's no easy answer to address it. And I think part of it is because it was the segregated place where people of color lives. And so there were non-conforming lots. And so the zoning looks different in Penland than it looks anywhere else in the township.
I'm aware of it as well.
So, you know, we're talking about the same thing, but how do we come to a place where we can actually meaningfully address it without restricting or inhibiting the rights of the individuals who own those properties and what they choose to do with it? And
I'm
listen,
not talking about the properties, I'm talking about 3 distinct areas, and they're really public places. So let me just be clear on what I know that I felt that there should be a sign that enters the community that says the Village of Penland. I felt that there should be a sign that signifies the church, when it was built, who was it built by? And then the third is just acknowledging where the baseball field is in Penland Park.
where
that
the
that
school
the
was.
same- Exactly.
I also
That's-
think that we
that's-
need to identify the folk mansion.
Well, you know, that's your point of view. I'm just
Yeah,
telling
no,
you
no.
what I
And
said.
that's just me
I
coming to
said-
the historic committee, sharing my point of view. So I don't want to in any way say that that's what's going to happen. That's just like, those are the same things that you just mentioned, except for I would probably add the folk mansion to it as well. But I say
It's
all that,
definitely
I
being
say all that to say that's, I think, their priorities when they last discussed it at the meeting. So it might be a good time to have that discussion on the 16th at the historic, you know.
Well, and the larger issue, you guys, is that it's the right thing to do.
I
It's
don't
the
think that
right
we're-
thing to do
yeah.
But I'm just saying, in terms of priorities, it's the right thing to do. It's clearly a gentrified community. It's clearly not gonna cost the same to renovate Ingersoll. I mean, if you can have a small win, have a small win. That's just what I want to say on the record. That's all.
I appreciate your time.
All right.
If you could come up and if you could state your name and your address, ma'am.
Or the 2 ordinances.
Good evening. I have to put my vote on paper because I sometimes, get what I.
You just have to say your name
But I
and
might
say your
say-
name and address really quick for us.
May I say that
Huh? I'm sorry.
Gloria Jones, person.
There you go. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. I might say that Carmina's grandfather baptized me.
Okay.
And I also, at one time, supported Carmina in a couple of things that she wanted to do in the community. Now, I'm not saying that what has been presented on the subject of a historical marker in Penland and history of Penland, but I think that there are other expressions that should be heard. I also believe that there's no inherent wrong in acknowledging differences and opposing views. But there may be if the disagreement is marked by misinformation and prejudice. I come tonight believing that the historical truth of Lower Gwinnett Township be recognized and inclusive, despite the customary segregated design of the country at that time. For well over 140 years, when the West was still the wild, wild West, and Wyoming and Kansas were not even states, a successful African-American community began and flourished in Penland Village in Lower Gwinnett Township. The history of this relevant segment of Lower Gwinnett citizens should not be or cannot be erased by negligence or denial. Like many others still living in Penland Village, I am a descendant of the African Americans who settled there. And I promised many of those no longer with us that I would do my very best to see that their footprint was represented in the history of Lower Gwinnett Township. And I am determined that whatever marker will represent this pioneering spirit of the Penland Village be one that we can be proud of. And I am proud that I am on the historical committee. And I would invite Carmina to come to any of the meetings that she wants and speak publicly. No one is keeping her away. And we meet on the third Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. You are welcome to come.
You just state-
Hi, I'm Carol Jones. I live at 390 Mansion Avenue in Penland. Unlike Carmine, I'm gonna give you my address. I am also a lifelong resident of Lower Gwinnett Township, born, raised, still here, been here my whole life. And I do understand that my great-grandfather was born in 1868, and I was alive. I was a kid before he passed away. So he told us tons of stories and about the preservation of Penland neighborhood. Now, I am actually also a committee person in Lower Gwinnett, so I walk the streets of Penland all the time. So besides my family being there, I talk to neighbors all the time, and I understand that the historical significance of our neighborhood is something, preserving it is something that's important to everyone. And so like you're saying, you've heard this a year ago, you heard this a year and a half ago, and I really do appreciate that the historical committee that is now formed now is actually looking at that, because back in the end of the 1990s, when we were doing the centennial, that's when it also had come up before, and obviously nothing was really done about it. But I really do believe that the township and the historical committee will look at everything in our neighborhood, all the significance. I know you've been walking our neighborhood many times. You know where the older homes are. You know the history of it. And Gloria Jones, who's on the historical commission, actually wrote a book about the neighborhood, about Penland Village, the history and her memories of her memoirs from Penland Village. So I really do think that what the community needs and what we're looking for right now will be done. And I thank the committee and I thank the township in advance.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Yes. The additional comment is Ms. Gloria came prepared to have a response directly to me. So the question is, how did Ms. Gloria know I was going to be here today if I just only emailed all of you? How did Ms. Gloria know how to
She's on the
direct?
historic committee, and I think the email was forwarded to the chairperson of the historic committee.
Right,
That's
and so
my-
he sent it to everybody else?
I can't say what he did.
Okay, she came prepared to respond to me.
Is there any additional comments? Seeing none. I'm going to move on to building and zoning. First up is the consideration of the amendment to our SALDO, our subdivision land and development ordinance regulating the tree preservation, maintenance, and replacement. I'm going to turn it over to our solicitor.
Thank you. This is a public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the subdivision and Land Development Code of Lower Gwinnett Township. It's the board sitting in its legislative capacity and examining ordinances to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. This particular ordinance applies only to subdivisions and land developments, and it prohibits clear cutting from taking place in conjunction with a subdivision or land development. Clear cutting being defined in the proposed ordinance essentially is the indiscriminate and broad removal of trees, shrubs, or undergrowth on any lot in a township with the intention of preparing real property for non-agricultural development purposes. There is also a 5-year look back provision in the ordinance so that perhaps an unscrupulous developer who wanted to clear cut today and defer his or her land development application will find that for a period of 5 years, he or she will be subject to the subdivision and land development tree replacement requirements. In connection with this ordinance, because it is an amendment to the subdivision and land development code, there are certain exhibits I'd like to enter into the record, and we are making a record. Exhibit 1 will be the proposed ordinance. Exhibit 2 will be the proofs of publication indicating that the ordinance was advertised on February 22nd, 2023 and March 1st, 2023. Exhibit 3 will be a letter from the Montgomery County Planning Commission dated February 13, 2023, in which the Montgomery County Planning Commission recommended adoption of the ordinance. And although we don't yet have the minutes, I understand that the Planning Commission of the township did meet on February the 15th, 2023, and also recommended approval of the ordinance. There are obviously penalties that apply for non-compliance. And with that in mind, I'll turn it over to the board for any questions or comment.
Are there any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Seeing none, so we have before us this consideration. Before we move forward, is there anything additional, Mr. Stein, if you need?
Nothing additional.
Okay. So we have before us the consideration of this amendment as it relates to our Saldo, the subdivision and land development ordinance regulating the tree preservation, maintenance, and replacement. We had the language and it was included in our packet. Our solicitor did go over it thoroughly. With that, we have the ability to decide if we want to move forward. So I would put a motion to approve the amendment to the subdivision and land development ordinance regulating tree preservation, maintenance, and replacement. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we can close the public hearing on that ordinance.
Thank you so much. Next up is the consideration of an amendment to the zoning ordinance regulating flag lots. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Stein.
Again, this is a public hearing to consider an amendment to the township zoning code. The amendment relates to flag lots. And specifically, the ordinance would provide that the access strip serving any flag lot shall have a minimum width of 50 feet. Prior ordinance, or the ordinance in place right now, indicates a 25-foot width for that access strip. Again, some exhibits. Exhibit 1 being the proposed ordinance. Exhibit 2 being the proofs of publication advertised in the Reporter on February 22nd, 2023 and March 1st, 2023. Exhibit number 3 is a letter from the Montgomery County Planning Commission dated February 14, 2023, endorsing the ordinance. And again, the ordinance was reviewed and endorsed by the Township Planning Commission at its meeting of February 15, 2023.
Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, are there any additional comments you want to make? Mr.
I have no additional comments. Thank you.
I'm going to put forward a motion to approve the consideration of the amendment. I'm going to put forward a motion to approve the amendment to the zoning ordinance regulating the flag lots. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
We can close the hearing on that ordinance and say thank you and good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next up is a resolution 2023-8. It is the preliminary final subdivision approval consideration for 1501 Cedar Hill Road. I think we have a memo that was included in our board packet related to staff's recommendation. The proposed project is a 2-lot minor subdivision of a single-family residential property located at 1501 Cedar Hill Road. It goes through the applicants and the variances. Our professional staff has made the recommendation that we grant preliminary final approval to the 1501 Cedar Hill minor subdivision application with the conditions noted in the approval resolution. Are there any questions from the board? No questions?
Nope.
Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, we have before us consideration of the preliminary final subdivision approval for 1501 Cedar Hill Road. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much. Next up is the authorization of our solicitor to oppose the zoning hearing board application at 669 Tennis Avenue. Believe we don't have a specific memo related to this. Would you like to give a summation?
I could do that. This is a zoning application that has been filed by the owner of 669 Tennis Avenue. It is a property located in, I believe, in a residential zoning district. The applicant has applied to the zoning board for permission, number 1, to erect a pole barn, number 2, to conduct a paving business, and number 3, to conduct a landscaping business on a property, again, zone residential. So these businesses would not be permitted and would likely be problematic for those in the immediate surrounding neighborhood. This requires, at least as to the 2 uses, a use variance from the zoning hearing board, which is the highest burden of proof that an applicant can have in front of the zoning hearing board. I think on a staff basis, we concluded that these uses are not appropriate for this property or appropriate for the neighborhood in which the property is located. The applicant has already been cited for a violation of the code by operating at least one of these businesses, the paving business, without appropriate permits. The applicant was fined $1,000 by the district justice, and the applicant has now taken an appeal of that fine to the Court of Common Pleas.
So, and just to be clear, the approval of, or the authorization for you to send to oppose that application is in its entirety, all the different uses as opposed to just one specific.
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I put forward a motion to authorize our solicitor to oppose the zoning hearing board application for 669 Tennis Avenue. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the approval of an engagement to audit our 2021 real estate tax collection. We have before us a letter of engagement from BBD that kind of outlines the auditor's responsibilities and what that would entail. I don't know if, Mimi, if you want to give any background to as an explanation as to the need for it and why we're doing this now.
It's a good practice to audit an elected tax collector. The township could audit the elected tax collectors' records, kind of do this the above and beyond a regular audit every year if you would like to. It's a good practice to do it as a look back in the last year that someone was in office, just to sort of have a clean record before, as the new elected tax collector is taking office. And the township did this in 2020, did an audit of Betty Lou Yost's final year's worth of records. So ideally, this should have happened last year. There's been a number of changes in our finance department, so we're catching up on some items like this now. So it just, better late than never.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to put forward a motion to approve the engagement audit for 2021 real estate tax collection. Is there a second? With BBD specifically.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 4-0. Thank you so much. Next up is the resolution 2023-9, authorizing Lower Gwinnett to join the Joint Board of Code Appeals. Before us is a memo from our Assistant Township Manager, kind of going over the need for us to operate under the Uniform Construction Code, which requires the establishment of an appeals board for the purpose of hearing and deciding appeals of orders, decisions, or determinations made by any building official or code enforcement official related to any application or interpretation of the municipal building code. The recommendation was that for us, Lower Gwinnett Township, to take the necessary steps to join the Joint Board of Code Appeals currently in place between Upper Gwinnett Township and North Wales Borough. Are there any questions from the board?
I just had one question. We've already confirmed with North Wales and Upper Gwinnett that we can join this board. Okay.
Any additional questions from the board?
Does Lower Gwinnett appoint somebody to serve on this board? I mean, I saw the schedule in the agreement itself.
Yeah, for this first year, we'll appoint one person, and then in future years, it'll be arranged that Upper Gwinnett, Lower Gwinnett each get 2, and North Wales would get 1 for a total of 5.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Questions from the public? Seeing none, I'm going to put forward a motion to authorize Lower Gwinnett to join the Joint Board of Code Appeals, Resolution 2023-9. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, guys.
So now if anybody knows of any
Yeah.
qualified candidates.
And just a question by hindsight. What are those qualifications? Is that mandated by the UCC or?
I think there is some language in there, but it's generally
Yeah.
familiarity with construction development.
It's in the resolution.
Should we put out a call for
That's what I was gonna
applicants
say.
like we do for any other board or commission?
We don't need it until next year, so should we put out that application and call now?
Oh, if we don't need it.
They'll do it this year, but so I guess it can't hurt. I mean, Upper Gwinnett and North Wales their boards still have to take their action. They're just waiting for
Oh, they're
this.
waiting for
Yeah,
us.
they're
Oh,
waiting for us
okay.
to give them this. But I guess it can't hurt. I mean,
We didn't have anybody hearing these appeals before.
no, they
didn't.
might, they haven't occurred. They might occur like once every 10
Okay.
years or something, but,
Okay.
but yeah, I guess it certainly can't hurt to try to find somebody.
So they would do, once they take their action, they have to completely reorganize.
Yeah, they have to, well, they're gonna keep the membership that they have currently because they're midterm now, so
Okay.
like they're mid-year, so. Well, it's not mid-year, but they've already started this year with it. So they would just continue as is. We would just add the 5th person. Right now, North Wales only had 1 person because they couldn't fill the other vacancy. So we'll just be the
Add that
5th
one
person
Okay.
for this year.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I guess we should
Yeah, I feel like might as well.
have volunteers if anybody's interested. You can hit up us on our volunteer application online. Call us
They've been
directly.
busy. Jamie, do you know? Do they get a lot of activity up there?
No.
Yeah, like once a decade among 3 municipalities.
Yeah, just kind of work these things out.
Good thing to put on your resume.
So next up is the receipt of the invoice history. Has everyone gotten a chance to take a look at the invoice history? Are there any questions from the board? No?
No, thanks.
Okay. We don't have to approve this, do we? We do have, this is not, this is the one we have to approve. Okay. Any concerns? No? I'm going to put forward a motion for us to accept the receipt of the invoice history for January 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. I think I'm confused. Let's say. Okay, next up is the year-to-date and the balance sheet for January 2023. Has everyone gotten a chance to look through that as well?
Mhm.
Any questions, any concerns? And I think we had a highlight memo that kind of went over the big takeaways.
Shout out to the finance department. for-
That's what I was gonna say. Thank you to the finance department for the very reader-friendly recap and putting those highlights together, but also for the amount of work that they've accomplished in the past few months has been tremendous. I appreciate it tremendously. Does anyone else have any comments, questions? No? Okay, next up is the approval of the minutes. Has everyone gotten a chance to review the minutes for February 22nd, 2023 meeting? Are there any questions or concerns, comments?
No, all good.
Okay, I'm gonna put forward a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Next up is committee reports.
I have notes this time.
Okay, you want to just take on your committees
I'll
right
just-
away?
Yeah, I'll just go.
There you go.
Last time I forgot my notes and it was a disaster. Okay, the Human Relations Committee met. They are working on their complaint form and their brochure to be published. It's currently in the hands of our solicitor. So hopefully at the next meeting, they'll be able to review any changes and adopt it at their next meeting so that that can get on the website and they can start making those publications. The just a couple announcements from Parks and Rec, even though they haven't met since our last meeting, but summer camp registration is still open and they're also still calling for camp counselors. If you want a summer job or anyone knows someone who wants a summer job, it's a fun gig. The Little League had their inaugural Parents Night Out fundraiser, which is the first time they've done something like that. It was very well attended and they have great enrollment this year. I think they said about 350 kids have enrolled for the program this year. So enrollment's up and they're very excited. Opening day again is April 15th. Easter egg hunt is April 1st, so save the date at Penland Woods. Tennis and pickleball registration is still open for the spring programs. They're still accepting registration for that. I think that's all from Parks and Rec. The County Historic Society is putting on a genealogy workshop on March 14th to kind of learn how to trace your family tree and things like that. That's going to be at the County Society's location in Norristown. But if anybody's interested, it's a fun event that the Historical Committee would like to promote. They're also calling for, information for their historical marker program. I think they put that in the newsletter, paper and the e-newsletter. So if anybody wants to contact the Historical Committee with that information, they are welcome to do so. Encouraged to do so, I should say. Fall Fest planning is in full swing. We have a bunch of vendors signed up already. The forms are up on the website. And there's lots of different sponsorship opportunities this year. If any local entities don't want to physically come set up a table, but they'd like to sponsor, there's a lot of ways to do that. That's it. That's it.
Good job.
Has the EAC met testing? You have an update from the EAC?
Yeah, so, the EAC met last night, and, I have to say they have a very, packed, schedule, so many different interests within the committee. They went over their calendar of activities and actions for the coming year, and, these events include the battery recycling, cleanup of 309 ramps, marking storm drains for awareness of storm runoff to Wissahickon Creek, a garden cleanup at Ingersoll House, composting workshops, and that's just, not everything. But the calendar is going to be up for the public to see what's on the schedule. I think there may be a technical glitch, so that needs to be worked out before everybody has free access to it. There's a lot of talk about efforts to recruit more volunteers to the EAC committees because, the limited number of people on the committee, of course, can't do all the activities. And so the committee is trying to figure out the best way to recruit more folks to get involved. There was a discussion about community choice aggregation, a CCA, and this is a situation in which a township potentially can purchase the whole township's energy from a single supplier to potentially increase the use of renewable energy. So there's a lot of unknowns about that approach right now, but it's being implemented in other boroughs, I think. So there was a vote to just try to gather more information to relay to the public on this situation. There was a discussion about a effort with the Public Works, with Fred and Santino, to start to implement a plan to replace some turf, which is currently being mowed by the township, with a native planting which would not have to be mowed. And this is going to be a pilot as a proof of concept for trying to reduce the amount of lawn type situations that the township currently mows, with plantings that don't have to be mowed, and they're native and they contribute in a positive way to the environment. So we are fortunate that our Public Works Director is very receptive to moving this idea along. And so the EAC wants to get behind this and offer support, as well as part of our budget for buying seeds or other supplies. So there will be a great collaboration there. And the last thing was a discussion on trail maintenance in Lower Gwinnett, and seeing if we can initiate a core of volunteers to help with select areas of the trail system, 26 miles of trails, to pick up trash, and also to identify areas that we might be able to get rid of invasive plants and start replacing those with natives along the trail system where appropriate. So that's it.
Just, can you tell me, I remember, and I can't recall exactly, where is the NOMO going to be, just in case people want to look and see how it's coming along or flourishing?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Do you want to speak to that?
It's at the pumping station on Welsh Road, the sewer pumping station, Forest Manor.
Okay.
Used to be McNeil's, but it's Forest.
Okay.
So it's accessible, but it's also safely off the road there.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much, Jason. Is there, are there any other committees that met that need to be updated? No? I didn't think there was. Okay. Staff updates.
In a few weeks, the department is up for reaccreditation. So just to give everybody a quick update, we've been an accredited agency for 6 years. And what happens is every 3 years, so year 3 and year 6, you get reaccredited. And what it involves is there'll be 3 officers from the western part of the state will come here. One is from the Capitol Police, one is from Derry Township, and one is from Dallas Township. They will arrive at our PD, spend 2 days with us, and they will review records and policies and general orders and standards that the state has considered best practices. So that what it really means, though, is it's very easy to have a policy, but do you follow the policy that you have? That's what we have to prove. And we have to prove it with 2 proofs for each year. So they're going to go back 3 years. They're going to go back to 2019, I believe, 2020, well, 2020, 21, 22. They'll look at those 3 years for every standard, and we need to show 2 times that we did what we say we do. So it's very time consuming on our part to have accreditation, but as most of us know, it's well worth it. It's a great thing to have, and not a lot of departments have it because it does require a lot of work. So we will spit shine the office in 2 weeks. We'll all look really good. Everybody's getting a haircut. It's challenging, but we are more than ready. And at the end of their time, they'll sit down with us and the township manager, and they'll go over what they found. And at the next commission meeting that the state holds out in Harrisburg, hopefully we'll be reaccredited, and we'll attend that meeting. They may ask us some questions. Hopefully they don't ask me questions, but it's a good thing. So I just wanted to let you know. I'll give you an update the next meeting, how it went. We'll probably write something up about it, but we're excited and looking forward to it.
Great. Well, we wish you luck. We know you don't need it, but we wish you luck and good energy as you go forward.
Absolutely,
This process.
absolutely. And it does help. One of the things we've done a few years ago was we went to a software program where these are not handwritten files anymore. They're all on a software program. Makes it easier for the assessors. It makes it easier for us. It does cost money. Divot does reimburse us a little bit for that. Divot's a big supporter of accreditation. It's a good thing. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief. So I have a couple of other updates. Last week, Jamie and I met with Pam Kelly and Kim Nguyen from the Greater Montgomery County Chamber. They have, they've been helping out the Lower Gwinnett Business Association for several years, and have now that business association is no longer exists, have taken over their Facebook page and are kind of trying to fill the void a little bit. So they are open for suggestions of how they can do that, and to be supportive of businesses in Lower Gwinnett. But one of the things they want to do is something they do in other municipalities, which is to have a meet the township breakfast. So they are going to be having it here in this room. It's April 19th, I believe. I think I'd send out everybody the date to everybody. And I'll do that again because I didn't write that down. So I'm doing that from memory at 8 a.m. in here. They will be inviting Lower Gwinnett businesses to come here, and they'll get a little bit of overview from the staff. A greeting. Danielle's going to be there hopefully to have a, welcome to Lower Gwinnett. Any of the supervisors obviously are welcome to join us. And we'll do a little bit of, this is what the township does, and this is how we can help you. Townie Henry's going to be there to do an overview of the community response unit and things like that.
How will they, like, do they have it, do the businesses have to be members of the Chamber of Commerce for them to outreach, or would there be, is it possible there's Lower Gwinnett businesses that aren't members I guess I'm just wondering how the businesses will know to come.
So I'm sure they're going to go through their membership list. I can find out if they want to keep this to chamber members, because I'm
Yeah.
sure they also want it to be a benefit for the members.
Right.
They do these things, but I don't know if they would want us to spread the word or.
That's what I was
Yeah,
gonna
that's,
ask.
yeah, if there's newer, because there might be newer businesses that aren't.
I think they're interested in getting people out because we had a meeting with the Goddard School, the people who are the franchise owner for, that is coming in. And he asked to be put in contact with them because he is interested in joining. And I told him about this breakfast, and Kim got back and said, yeah, absolutely, have him reach out to me. And he did today. So I think they're okay with people that aren't already members.
So are we
joining.
comfortable with maybe sharing that? I know that we don't have a comprehensive list.
I can
necessarily.
verify. I'll just like confirm that with her and then
Make
we
sure
could
that's
shoot
okay.
something out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just some of the newer businesses might not
there's been some
be
changeover,
members. Yeah.
Yeah.
just so that they all know that this is an opportunity, maybe if
Mhm.
they weren't part of, the business association historically, but have a chance now to come be a part of the chamber and identify themselves. So moving forward, that they can be included, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for attending and outreaching to the chamber.
One follow-up from the last meeting, your meeting packets are now available on the township's website. It's not just the agenda, it's the meeting packet. And yesterday I received an email from Congresswoman Madeline Dean that she is accepting applications for community project funding. So there's another round of federal funding where they're accepting applications. These are typically larger projects. I was looking, and she also emailed out a resource guide. So there's guidelines, and there's a lot of different kinds of federal funding that's out there for ones that seemed like they could be applicable to the township. That would have something like, minimum grant given $500,000, medium grant given $2 million. Just like, and it was always in those kind of ranges. So just so they have an idea, it's for larger projects, which also makes sense. Any federal funding has a lot of rules and compliance. It costs money to get a federal grant and be able to comply with all of it. So you don't want to do that for a small project. And I just forwarded the email today to staff to get people thinking about it. So we have a little bit of time. I just wanted to make sure the board is aware of it. I can forward the email to you as well, so you have a little bit more information. I don't know if we have anything that's kind of ready for that, but we have a little time to think that through.
Much time.
Yeah, what are
I
the?
was gonna say, I think I know about it.
March,
too.
oh, I'm sorry.
might
Actually,
make
we don't for this one. It's March 15th. I take that back. It's March 15th. They want to know just the project. Like, I think it's, and a summary of it.
It's
So,
just your
You don't
first
need the
pass.
plans,
You don't
right?
need to be shovel ready or necessary.
you can use, it depends on the funding source. Like I thought transportation was one of the, there's like the cops money is in there, and transportation seemed to be the most likely for us, and you can use the money for design.
So I've kind of lost track of the money we were going to use to repair the little bridge out on Old
We're
Bethlehem.
still waiting. There's a meeting on March
March-
16th.
It's also gonna say it's March 16th is the day after this is due.
I'm sorry, Danielle.
So there was a meeting that was, I think, postponed from December to January, and then it got postponed again. And I believe they're going to meet, if they don't postpone it, March 16th, which is the day after this funding is actually due.
Okay.
That's when we will hopefully get a decision on
And
it.
this is at the state level or
Mhm.
county? At the
State
state.
level.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so the new money that
that we're talking about now, is it restricted to certain broadband?
There's a plethora of actual funding opportunities. There's not just necessarily one. There's multiple categories. So I think if you're looking at the same grant that I was looking at, maybe like there was transportation, there was infrastructure, there was money to actually plan to do something like the planning,
Yeah,
the design.
right.
You could get money for that. So I don't think it's limited to, but it's not. So like you think county is this amount of money, state is this amount, but for the federal government to make it worth your while, you really have to have a big project. Because the amount of time and energy you're gonna
Right.
put in compliance.
Yeah.
So
And
there's
so,
not saying that we don't have big projects.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have
I mean, we
lots
just
of
think back, we
ideas.
just have to think back to our capital project meeting and
But in the township, here, who would be responsible for writing the grant applications?
Jamie and I would do that.
Okay, because we don't employ the other person anymore. Okay.
I guess if we needed her, we could, she's on like sort of an ad hoc or contract basis, right? If it was so cumbersome or whatever,
Right.
and we needed her, we
I
could.
think it'd be more like if you got the funding, you
Right.
might want to use
We
her,
need her
not
to
so much.
administer,
Mhm.
to
administer.
administer the funding.
March 15th. So
That's next.
is that something like we can noodle on and then make a decision by the 15th, or is it a?
Because it's a one
Well,
page.
14th maybe, so that we could.
Well,
really
correct,
quick-
but I mean, is it a, like something we have to approve at a meeting? Okay.
Not for this, I don't believe. No.
Oh, my
Neil, do you
goodness.
have anything you want to say otherwise? No? Okay. Neil said no. And Mimi said no.
We can, for anything like that, the board could ratify it after submission. I would, if we're going to submit $1
Because
million
it's a one-
grant, I'm
it's
going to
a-
be talking to all of you about that. So
Yeah,
none of
it's a
you will
one-
be
No,
surprised.
No, I was
about
just
this,
making, I'm
but-
like, do we need to sit here and talk about this right now? Because it could take a while.
No, no, no,
Can
no,
I
no,
noodle?
no, no.
Okay, I can noodle.
I
Can you
think
send
we-
that to everybody just so that they can
Yeah,
have
I
all the
think we
dates?
have some important things that we've been discussing over the last couple of years. That would be really helpful.
It's very competitive though. So this shouldn't
Oh.
just be like you came up with it, on Thursday and we're going to submit it.
No, no,
It
no.
helps if
These
it's in the
things we've
plan.
been talking About for a couple of years at least.
But so I did look at the capital plan. So for the project, like, I think the park funding is not something that they're looking at. It's not one of the ones. It's really more like transportation, maybe stormwater, but I don't think we really know where those projects are going to be. So to go through all that time to be like somewhere in Lower Gwinnett, we'd like to do a big base.
Transportation, do you mean like trails and crosswalks and
It's
connections?
highway, it's under highway funding,
Oh,
so.
okay.
um,
I'm like, cause I got some trail connections.
Yeah.
How about building a new building for our public works?
I don't
Where
know what
we,
I cannot imagine how that would fit into.
Essential.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be hard to squeeze them there.
Well,
oh,
we'll look at it. and
Forward
think
it right
about it.
in. And that's all I have for update.
I mean, that,
Town Pike.
See, eventually, yes, but like just to have that as a concept. So while you can, I think you can apply for design, you need to have the idea, you need to have cost estimates and a couple of years from now, I think maybe this could be funding for something like that. It's that kind of scale is what you want to think about for
Well,
this.
Bethlehem Pike, aren't there phases for that already planned out that we just haven't implemented?
It's pedestrian. And it isn't that high.
Pedestrian
even.
and transportation, I guess.
I don't think it's enough. I don't think
Maybe.
the cost would be enough, right?
No, I think maybe the total project is 500,000 and this, what you'd be asking for would be less because there's a match. You'd have to have some match too. So think bigger than that,
Think
federal
bigger.
funding.
It's hard. I was thinking about it and I didn't really think off the top of my
How
head.
much was the Ingersoll, like bringing the water in and doing all that
That was
grant that we didn't get? I
385,000.
thought there was an 800, what was the 800?
Like there is, in that we have in the capital plan, and this is a plug, honestly, it's a guess, like maybe $900,000 in total for all the improvements that have been thought about in Ingersoll.
Right.
But you're doing a master plan for that. So
Right.
yeah, like that it's after the master plan is done. And park funding actually isn't even one of the categories in here unless we somehow.
But if we
Is it
could connect it
agriculture?
But that, yeah, or,
connect it
or
to
water,
something.
like if there was because that was water sewer access was a
But
big.
that's such a
cost.
tiny, you'd never want to add federal requirements to $60,000 worth of work. You'd
No.
spend $50,000 to comply with that 60.
I gotcha. I thought we could just like maybe sweep it in.
No, think big. Think big. So the public works facility is the scale as far as
That's the
dollars.
sca-
It just
yeah.
doesn't. Um,
Yeah.
So the,
we
the
had a
public
major
works
bridge.
building, even including like the cost of buying property.
So
it's
if
not
we-
the dollar.
so I was thinking like if we needed to have like a emergency preparedness center, that would be the scale and the cost. And would be appropriate because we're regionally addressing emergencies and
But
kind of
that's part
saying.
of it. That's part of the public.
I was
works
trying
plan.
to figure out how we could use public,
It
it'd
would
be
be a
like in the
command
back,
center.
we'll.
We can
tour-
put in a command center. Put in a command center.
But that would be the scale. So like if we were saying regionally for all of the surrounding municipalities, this would be your safe place where you could operate out of to ensure that health and safety and EMS and fire could be there and functionally, that would make sense.
Oh, so it's
But we
gonna
don't need
be,
it. We don't have the plan for that. And really, it was just a way to see if we could get a public works garage. But that was, that's what I was thinking in my mind.
yeah, that money sure would come in handy if we could use it for that, just that building, but yeah. So
It's kind of one of the things where, I mean, last year it was bridges. None of our bridges were the size, scale, or
yeah,
owned by us that it's federal money is the hardest money to use and to need to some degree. And you don't want it unless you absolutely need it.
so you-
Right.
you
That
could-
is so true.
You don't
and you
want it
couldn't
in-
just use it for buying new fire trucks, for
No.
example.
No.
I
Classic
know.
example of
Boy, I saw dollar signs there for a few minutes. I was like, oh, yes, we can address some of our pent up needs.
Well, any other additional staff updates?
We do have one, speaking of grants, we got notification today that we got the grant that was put in for the police department, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
Yay.
Yeah. Now, they didn't give us the exact grant amount yet, but they said that'll be forthcoming.
Was PDICC or
PCC.
I get it wrong?
Yeah.
PCCD. I always get it wrong. I just make up numbers. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they said by April 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations
great,
to all.
yeah.
That's wonderful.
Good job. Well done. Kudos.
And what is the plan for the money? What
And
is
they
it?
specifically asked for, was it? You could say, because I don't.
We
misrepresent-
asked for body cameras.
Yeah.
That was like close to 40,000.
Yeah,
We asked for some software improvements. There was a whole list of things. We asked for LPRs in the cars, license plate readers for 2 new police cars. We asked for new laptops in 2 police cars. Software for detectives, software for the body cameras that would monitor different things. There was a lot of things.
Mhm.
It'd be great if we get, hey, I'll be thrilled if we get the body cameras. That was, we prioritized a little bit and that was one of the big ones. So that would be awesome. We have them. We need to replace them and upgrade them.
Yeah.
So,
Great. That's wonderful news then.
so we'll have an update in a couple of weeks on that. I've been pestering Jamie constantly. When are we going to hear?
I didn't think we were going to hear it to the 16th of March either. So that's a happy day.
Is that when they're doing all of them? Like,
I
what
think
about
it
the,
is, yeah.
the one we did for Gwen Friends, whatever that was?
That's the 16th. I
The
believe.
16th too?
Yeah.
I think so.
They were so busy. There's 2 rounds of this. They released one round a few months ago, and we were put on hold for the first round. Because so many people applied.
Wow, that's great.
And congratulations. Again, thank everyone. Any other staff updates? Oh, it looked like Fred wanted to say, something. You don't want to say anything? Okay. With that, supervisor updates, Tessie.
Could we somehow arrange our two fire companies to be the county seat of something to get some of this money? Okay, I'll just think about it some more. No more comments.
Okay, that was interesting. Go ahead, Kathy.
I have nothing. Thank you.
You need?
Nothing.
I don't have anyone, but again, I want to thank our finance department for all of the hard work that I know that they have been plugging through. And it's evident that they have been plugging through it, and I appreciate it tremendously. I think the township, and I think I'm speaking for the whole board.
I second that.
Yes.
We appreciate all of the hard work and diligence that you've put into getting us up to date and making sure that everything is done. Also want to thank our police department as it relates to dealing with that incident that I know at least a lot of neighbors where I live were very concerned about and shaken up about. So I appreciate you guys, and only lovely things to say about the police department and how it was handled and the time and care that it was taken for the young boy, his family, and even the neighbors to talk to them through what transpired. So just kudos to our police department for the work that they're doing, and thank you to all of our staff for all of that you've done. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Meeting is adjourned. And to you too, Neil. I'm sorry I didn't say your name.